Jared, do you want to start off and tell us a little bit about yourself? Let us know how you got into filmmaking.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I come from a small town in Utah. It's just north of the capital of that state. It's called Bountiful. Not much going on there, but I had good long time, growing up with friends who had similar activities growing up. One of them happened to be parkour, which is a good segue of how I got into filmmaking. And this was before like Casino Royale came out and kind of blew up what parkour kind of put it on the map, if that makes sense. I don't know, we got into the sport and we needed someone to film our YouTube stuff. And that was me. I just got the camera and started filming us doing some stunts. And then I became less involved doing the stunt work and I just got more attached to the filmmaking bit of it. So what's funny about this is some of those friends are stuntmen now. That's what they do full time, and I'm doing the filmmaking full time. So it's kind of fun that we made those our career paths, But yeah, that's a little bit about myself, starting from this small town out in Utah.
Yeah, I know a lot of guys start off like filming skateboarding or surfing or mountain biking, but yeah, parkour is a new one. Do you remember the first time, you picked up a camera and started filming?
Good question. It starts even earlier than that. My curiosity with cameras. My dad had an expensive like VHS camera or DV tapes. I have to remember what format it was at the time, but then my friend, like my dad would never let me use his. It was just too expensive and he didn't trust me with it. But I was always curious when he pulled it out. I was like, okay, this looks cool. Or when we'd watch some home videos and whatnot. But my friend's parents had one as well, but they were a little bit more lenient and kind of let us toy around with it. Or maybe they didn't know. I can't remember if they gave us permission or not, but we definitely took the camera. And this was when we were still playing with toys. We had like action figures and whatnot, and we do stop motion. We'd kind of take like I don't know, like a Mario figure and move a leg, and then hit start, stop, record. Start, stop, and then every single movement was this. It wasn't a photograph. It was pretty tedious doing it on like a tape, and there's like a buffer, so everything kind of like took longer than it needed. But we didn't even have like an editing platform. It was just straight linear. That was our editing. We're like, okay, so now we have to go on to the next scene after we shot this thing. We can't mess up, It was very tedious, but we didn't know any difference, That actually intrigued me, and I fell in love with that. My friends didn't really care so much as a kid. But I'm like, wow, this is a lot of fun. But that was me picking up a camera, and I mean, the way that I ended up getting a camera for our parkour stuff, I think I ended up just saving my money, trying to buy a mini DV camera as well. And this was many years later. I was in high school and I started doing the parkour thing. Some action figures at this time. And yeah, I just have to remember I just started picking up the camera. Like I said, we needed someone to film us and see if we've been doing things that looked good, right? So slowly I started upgrading my cameras as well. And this is where my parents saw that I was really invested in doing the filmmaking thing. They helped buy a nicer HD mini DV camera. I forget what it's called, like the Canon XA1 or something like that. It was great at the time. I think it was like 1080i, 720p was good for the time, and yeah, I wanted to make a career out of it after I made like a parkour short film of one of my friends who's an athlete, and they won like a national award for high school level, like PTA contest, but from a national level, and that kind of just boosted confidence. Like, okay, I think I'm taking this more serious than the other high school kids, Yeah, that's kind of what got me filmmaking and experimenting with cameras.
Yeah, can you describe how you first met Jonny Mass?
We connected through Facebook, but it was a friend when I was working with another aspiring director who were doing spec work. There's a crew member who knew Jonny Mass Like, hey, there's this up and comer who is super young but super ambitious, and he's doing this automotive stuff. I think you should connect with him. Here's his information. He passed it to me on Facebook, and so through Facebook chat, I just messaged him and shared my work, told him what I would like to be doing, and we kind of hit it off from there. And we spoke for a few months before that red project came up because he was doing his own projects. Oh yeah, this is how it happened. He filmed this like Yosemite piece by himself, and that's how Jared Land found Jonny, because he filmed it all in this red. And then Jared Land shared that project, and then he was about to launch the Helium. Fortunately, I was still fresh on Jonny's mind. He's like, okay, I'm going to direct this piece. I want to have a good DP, or a DP be able to do it and not just focus on camera and directing. So I'm like, okay. That's when he invited me. So it was just all about timing for that one. We ended up landing our first commercial, which was a Michelin tire spot, which was a performance automotive piece. Like, it was a drifting Lexus, I think it was. It was insane. And it was all about this tire, but it was a 1-day shoot. We did like half day inside filming the talent and the car parked, and then when the sun was setting, we're like, we got to go outside and film the car drifting around. And I mean, that did wonders for us. It was insane that Jonny landed that piece and that I was able to shoot it given only the couple spec pieces we had. So it was pretty great. I could share that as well, Rory.
You can take us back to when you first did the fire and ice project. Like, just walk us through it. Was there storyboards? Was there a lot of people involved? Like, I remember seeing a behind the scenes of that. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about the fire and ice project.
I have to remember how it all came together. I knew we planned it for a while. I told him things I wanted to achieve with it, and then he expressed his goals as well. And then we just started forming ideas and putting it together. I mean, Jonny took the reins and formed the story, of this kid's imagination with him playing with this toy car. And this is bringing back good memories now. Once again, Jonny's connections really helped do us the favor because we didn't have money for it. We had to put in a couple grand, and Jonny's company funded it, which he did editing and all that. His company was just like a abandoned editorial, which is what it's called now. It was called Abandoned Visuals at the time. And he was able to get us the camera, the lenses, that GSS gimbal, and I mean, we had that, I think, on like, it seemed like we were on a Razor, like a side by side. I could have sworn. I mean, I don't know how we were going fast, but it was something like that. I could have sworn that's what it was mounted to. It was something insane. But all right, let's just bring back memories. Yeah, we just had so many favors for us on this project, and everyone just wanting to give their heart to it, and just to benefit all of us. We had a fantastic drone team as well who came out and did the drone work. We had ITC, we had officers by the Donner Bridge in Lake Tahoe, and they would lock up the street for us, and it felt legitimate. It's kind of how we do it in the actual automotive space, but it was pretty insane. We had that toy Lamborghini, which is, I think, painted orange, and our editor Edward hand painted it to match the same color as this Lamborghini, and so you'll see that featured in the video. And I took a day to do more insert stuff, like wire through pipes and particles and oil running through you know, all this macro work. I just took a day into the studio and just did that, and figured this would help heighten the energy of the piece. And yeah, I think we did it for a couple days, but we knew we had something special as soon as John and I were kind of like passing references and like putting this puzzle piece together. Like, okay, we got to go shoot this. And Johnny moves fast. He's like, okay, now that we got it going, we're gonna shoot it next week, and it's gonna be done in like 2 weeks or something. He moves so quick. When he has his like vision, he's like, boom, we're on it, and it's delivered. The piece is out. You know, it's he's a very ambitious director, which is so great. You know,
So how did Johnny Mass get into filmmaking? Did he go to film school or anything like that?
I'm not quite sure how he got into everything film wise. What I do know is he came from doing scooter, like I don't know the term, like a a skateboarder. He did scootering, and and then started making the transition into filmmaking. But I'm not quite sure how that happened.
Yeah, so I guess it's a good idea to go after directors if they're the ones that are putting the project together. As a DOP, you need somebody that's going to lead a team and put it all together and make something, worthwhile that you can put on your reel. So after the Fire and Ice project, there was the Michelin project. How did that all come about?
I did a couple other jobs, but they were in automotive. They were simple lifestyle pieces for some agency work. And Michelin was the first automotive piece. I've never operated the arm car. This is the first time doing so, and I butchered it. It was tough, but it was definitely one of those things where you just had to learn, take it till you make it, and I had to do that. Definitely should have hired an operator for that, but I'm like, I wanna do this. I want to do this for myself. I want to be able to operate. Um, for Fire and Ice, there was an operator. It was the guy who owned the gimbal. He's like, I'm gonna do this. I'm like, great, just make it look cool. Um, but for Michelin, we were just chasing light. It was like the sun was setting, the pressure was on. We had like this hour to shoot it. And so we didn't really choreograph that much. We probably had one thing that we did where we choreographed, and then it was just like, okay, we gotta shoot. So I'm just like there panning, tilting, trying to catch it. Where is it? Oh, it's over here. The driver is like, hey, he's on the left. She's on the left. Go over there, pan left. I'm like, okay, okay. Oh, so funny. It was embarrassing, but like when we're done, when they had to call wrap, I was just like adrenaline. I'm just like fatigued. I'm so tired. Like, did we get anything usable out of this? I mean, thank goodness we had a good editor, and energy was felt when you see the piece. So I'm grateful for all the sound design as well. Help mask my issues.
That's a good thing about commercials, I guess, is, it's only 1 or 2 seconds here or there. It's easy to kind of cover any mistakes rather than, filming like a live sporting event or something.
Oh man, yes.
But yeah, like starting in weddings and live events, it's a good experience to kind of learn the ropes and, feel that pressure, trying to get the shot right. Even with commercials, there's still a lot of pressure because, especially if you're filming like a celebrity or something, you only have a limited amount of time to kind of jam everything into that one day of shooting. And then, you kind of have to get it right. Otherwise, you probably won't get hired again. But you did the Michelin project. So after that, what happened?
Yeah, we did another spec piece, Johnny and I, like Ford Mustang. It was more like a comedy style, brighter in tone. We needed more automotive pieces to gain the trust of people, from the ad agencies and production companies and whatnot. But I have to remember what was next. Give me a second and I'll take a look. Yeah, we
Because you can
did.
see you
There's
see under
there's
that.
legend there's Legend of Solarzana, which is still on my website. Um, we did Michelin, and we did like this Ford piece, which was not funded. We did another self-funded project, Legend of Solarzana, which is like a short documentary about Solarzana, who would race the Baja race. I don't know which one it was, but I guess he's legendary for that, just racing a dune buggy. And we did a small piece. We went down to Tijuana, small crew. I think there was like 4 of us. We did have a producer help us out, and yeah, we brought a red with some anamorphic lenses and a drone, and very scrappy, but told the story we wanted to do, and we wanted to have another performance automotive piece, and that was another Jonny Mass piece, which was so great and brought us more agency work.
So was this project funded, or did somebody pay for it?
Another self-funded piece, which we did a lot of those. We just wanted to build a strong reel, That was our goal, showing that we can film performance automotive, more sleek work. And it's surprising that Legend Solarzano did so much for us, because filming a car in the desert, if an agency sees that, you're going to get that. And so we got a lot of that. There was a long streak of me and Jonny filming out in the desert because of this piece.
So yeah, like once you did that project in the desert, I guess you got kind of, some other projects that are based off, filming in the desert, because you kind of put that self-funding into that project, and then other people saw it, I guess. So it's like an example, put something on your reel and then people can see and then trust that you can do it. So after that project, what was next?
From Solarzano, that got us, did a Toyota Tundra and Tacoma piece where they're forming this soccer field, because it was going to be playing at one of the large soccer games, and which that was a way fun piece to film, just these 2 trucks just ripping it through the desert, climbing up hills and just drifting and whatnot.
Yeah, so that Toyota commercial seems like it's kind of the next level of production in terms of budget and people involved and maybe visual effects, or some extra work put into it. If you want to just take us through like what it was like.
Yeah, this one we had a couple of units too. We had like a hard mount unit. We had Tim Sussler on board to help rig cars and do some interior work, while Jonny and I were in the arm car. And we did board. It was very important, because we had a visual effects team supervising some of the visual effects shots, whether it was the final shot or the formation with the soccer field, or set extension, basically from our drone shot if we wanted to add more mountains and whatnot. We had a handful of VFX shots, but most of it was, these boarded shots of the hard mounts we wanted, where we wanted to put these cameras, and the key beats as well, of like them stepping out of the car.
So you and Jonny Mass did a lot of projects together early on, like on your reel you can see like Jonny Mass, Jonny Mass, Jonny Mass. Like what was that point where you kind of decided to step away from Jonny and go and work for another director?
That's a very good question. Jonny and I had like such a good streak, and I remember I was chatting with DP agents at the time. They're just like, "You guys gotta work with other people," which was true. I mean, we had to. It was in order for us to grow and to really like kind of shift in direction, and or like kind of tweak the work. It's good to be challenged in different ways, because then you can see in different perspectives, or try new things. Jonny and I we were just so comfortable. Not necessarily it was bad. It was just like we were still of one mind. Like, yeah, this is the direction we're going. I just did a piece with the Taos, which is Aaron and Winston Tao, and it was a storytelling piece with Ford. So I figured, let's bring Aaron and Winston out, and so we did second unit for Diego for Ford, and that was a great experience for us. And we're like, okay, well, it's a shame we became second unit because we can't really put it on our reel per se, or we couldn't really claim it as our work because we were taking direction for someone else. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's like we didn't create the piece. So then we ended up doing a passion project for Volvo, this father-son relationship film, which is a more emotional piece, more narrative based, but had little hints of car work in it, just to kind of open the doors commercially for Aaron and Winston with any car work. Granted, they just wanted to do more narrative work. I wanted to shift to more storytelling in the automotive space instead of just filming performance, automotive, or just sheet metal, which I do love, but there's a great fine balance of wanting, to switch things up. And I think it's important to, because it's just filming sheet metal, you're going to start missing filming a face, and so I needed something like that on my reel as well. So that's what we created, the Volvo piece, another self-funded project. But I do believe their production company they were repped with at the time did fund quite a bit of it as well. So that did help. We had more funding for that Volvo piece than I think all those Johnny Mass pieces, almost combined, to be honest.
So how did you meet the Tao brothers?
We connected through Instagram. I don't know who kicked it off, but we just messaged each other, and I was in Utah at the time. They're in LA. I was like, hey, do you want to meet for coffee here in LA sometime? Like, let's do it. I'm going to be in LA.
So the Volvo project you kind of chose to be kind of separate to the Lamborghini, where the Lamborghini's kind of like focused on the car, and the Volvo you're able to tell a bit more of a story, perhaps. Maybe it's a more family centric rather than just focused on a sports car. So after the Volvo project, how were you able to use that to kind of get the next job?
I would say it helped me connect with Cole Webley for a Jeep piece, which was similar. It's more storytelling than it is about the car. It's this project called Memories, which is this guy who is filling all the dents in his old Jeep and remembering how these dents happen. So he'd relive these memories, and we'd see what happened, what occurred. He'd find another dent, same thing. Which Cole is a fabulous storyteller, and he cares so much more about the story than the automotive, but he needed an automotive DP who could still tell stories. And I'm glad that he gave me a chance. It was a great one for us to connect on. But as you could see in that one, you probably only get like 10% of the film as a car, but it's one of those pieces. I'm like, great story. I need another one of these for sure. It's another one of these projects that still has the narrative, but also adds a car. That's some of my favorite stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I think I'm just like interested in how, people like yourself are able to go from one project to the other. You can put something out and hope somebody sees it, but it's not always the case. Like, hopefully, you can build up those relationships over time, and each job will lead to the next one. So after you met Cole, like, what was the next kind of project after that?
Definitely started working a lot more with other directors after that. A lot of the, I'd say, recurring or collaborative directors I've been working with has been with the Roos brothers and Kacper Larski as well. We've done a handful of projects together. Happy to talk about the Roos brothers. I mean, they had such the amazing project that just showed up for Polestar. It was to be filmed, I think, like 8 days. We did 4 in Sweden, and I think we did some in LA as well. I have to remember how we divided it, but this was during lockdown, and this treatment comes through. My agent sends it to me, and I'm just in awe. I'm like, this, I've been wanting to do something like this, something that's just like, higher concept and still has the tone that I'm drawn to, the taste of this darkness. And I mean, everything that you referenced on the treatment, I'm like, okay, it just spoke to me. I'm like, yeah, we need to get this. I'm like, I need to get this project. But what was so bizarre about it is we couldn't, well, first off, fortunately, I got awarded the job. They wanted to work with me, and we hit it off right away, just going back and forth on the look, on ideas for shots, and we just connected well. And it was one of those things when we got awarded, it was more troublesome to kind of figure out how we're actually going to make it happen, because to get up to Sweden commercially, we may be having to quarantine and a connection somewhere, whether that's in like Paris or something. So we're like, we cannot do that if we already locked in our dates. So the agency and production team, they got us a private jet and flew us from New Jersey to Gothenburg. And we're like, this is the best way to travel. It makes sense. Because now you don't have TSA lines. And then when we showed up there, they didn't even have to look at their face, just grabbed our passport, boom, we're in. Like, okay, well, I guess money does buy accessibility, right? How unfair. It's so funny how spoiled we were on that trip. I haven't flown private since, but I'm like, what a treat that was. Um, I could not imagine how expensive it was for the agency or production to make that happen, but that was the only way to make that happen. Um, and we had Oscar Isaac as our celebrity for that piece. We had him for a little bit of time, and so we just had to be very precise with how we were gonna approach it, with him, with a pre-light and the interviews we had to deliver. Because the commercial spot you see on the website is not the full piece. We had to do like interviews with the designers and other people from the Polestar team and talk to Oscar, but Oscar would be asking the questions. He's like, so tell me the inspiration for like sustainability, or like the design for this, or how'd you guys end up crafting, all this, and they go down. It was great education. I think Polestar's a fabulous company, and with what they have been creating, and they're beautiful cars, but like the renewed and sustainable materials they're using, I'm like, this is something special for sure. But from that tangent, um, the Roos brothers and I just want to make something absolutely special. We invested so much time and like additional time just to elevate the visuals beyond what the budget would allow. Granted, they really forked out their rates to make it better than it was initially going to be, whether it was like adding a day here or there, but we did so much work that didn't even make the cut. But the editor who did the piece was like, we have so much good footage still. So he made his own cut, the editor, with like additional footage, because like we have the director's cut, then we have the editor's cut. It was really fun, because you can imagine how much work you get, or how much content you get with 8 days shooting.
So this was the first job that you got from an agent. So before, you said most of the jobs came through, reaching out to directors on Instagram or people that you'd met along the way. Just explain the agent process. Like, how did you get an agent? How do you like pitch for these jobs? And just the process involved.
I'll start with how I got the agent, then we can talk about the process. But No, I felt like I had a decent reel given the work I did with Jonny and maybe another director I was working with at the time too, but who was not automotive. But I flew out to LA and kind of interviewed the town of agents. Usually you want them to approach you because then that really shows how interested they are. But and I was always told that, you only can make a first impression once. So it's important to like be happy with where your reel is before you really present yourself. And I mean, I felt like I had a handful of automotive pieces, which were just the self-funded ones. At the time, I don't think I did that Michelin piece. We did just the other Jonny pieces, the Fire and Ice and this uh that that Mustang piece. But I just interviewed the town. I went out and met with a bunch of agents. Some were willing, but we just didn't connect, or I didn't feel the right fit. And then some were just like, we're not ready. But I found one at the time who was, and I'll keep it brief with them. I was with them for a couple of years. Wasn't really happy because I was bringing probably 90% of the work. And granted, I had honestly a weak reel. It was weak, so I get it. Like the work probably didn't speak to a lot of people. So I had to do a lot more of the heavy lifting. But then another agent was like, hey, they hit me up while I was already repped. Like, hey, I would love to have you over here. And that was with Greg from Artistry, who I'm with right now. I met with him and it just seemed like the right fit. And when I signed over, it was 9-day difference. He was really motivated to get me working and he brought in majority of the work after. There was a big difference, I would say. And the quality of treatments I was seeing. It's a partnership, so you have to really connect with them. Continue after I did Polestar with the Roos brothers, they got this Dodge piece, which was for the Dodge Hellcat. That was such a fun piece. This is what I think our second project we did, and it was this like cat and mouse idea that they had, and there was no money in it. It was just they fed into the VFX budget. I mean, with their own money, I'm pretty sure. But it was just we had the arm car and picture car and road closures, and we would just film in 3 in the morning and have people yelling at us between takes because they have to wake up at maybe 6 a.m. to go to work, but at 3 in the morning they have these tires squealing just outside their apartment. Um, yeah, the Roos Brothers and I did a handful of other projects after that, and it was so much fun.
So I see this commercial here done with Dave Meyers, the big music video director. Just tell us a little bit about what it was like working with Dave.
That one came through my agent, I would say this, that Dodge piece, given like this the energy of the piece, that actually got me a lot of other work. And I was fortunate to be able to work with Harmony Korine, this legendary artist and director. We did this piece for Maserati. And then that was with David Beckham as well. That I think that piece showed other directors that, oh, he worked with Harmony, you know, let's connect with him, see how he went on with Harmony as well. But I think Dave saw this piece, probably Dodge. He probably saw maybe another handful of pieces, and just the Acura piece is a very high performance. That brand, they always push. Their branding is just wild, and I love it. They're so fun to work with. We had 3 spots we were shooting for them, featuring Vince Staples. And originally, I think it was going to be 2 spots, which was one called Spin. So we had a lot of like rotating camera moves. And so we used like a matrix or black unicorn head, which allows for infinite roll. So the cables don't get bind up. On the day that we were tech scouting, Dave shows up at this empty yard, which we were supposed to have a floating car. It was kind of illustrated on the boards, a floating car. And we're going to have vent staples just in front of it. But Dave was like, you know what? It'd be nice if we had like 16 vent staples around the car. Just him, maybe one on top, one here. And we're like, oh, that sounds awesome. The producer then, just kind of sweating like, what is this gonna take? We're like, oh, yeah, it's motion control. Okay. Just all this added money. But I mean, Dave brings so much work to the production company. It's like, yeah, they're gonna give Dave what he wants, right? He does so well for Acura, I mean, for Radical Media. And that became its own spot when it was just supposed to be a section. So the floating car just kind of grew with his creativity. He's such a visionary director. It blows my mind all the work he puts out, him and his collaborators. This also had Mia Barnes directing, was Dave's assistant. But she took the reins after, Dave came in and kind of illustrated. He had other work he had to do. Mia then came in and, we collaborated from there on doing this project, which is the floating car, the spin. There's another one called Magic. Hopefully that helps you understand Dave just a little bit from my perspective. I was just blown away by how creative he was, Yeah, let's just change it. Let's add 16 and staples around the car. I'm like, oh, wow, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, so you kind of skipped past that Maserati commercial. Just tell us a little bit about that. Like, was David Beckham there? Was he doing burnouts himself in the car? Or was that like...
No, we actually had him do these burnouts. We had a great stunt coordinator who took the Maserati and he bolted into the ground an anchor point so that all you had to do these burnouts was hold the wheel all the way cranked to one side, and then it would just pivot you around in that perfect circle. So it would accentuate that burnout, That was the way it was done. And so David got his instructions from the stunt team. Like, all you have to do is just hold it like this and you're going to be burning out. Made it very simple for David, and we had very little time with him. We could only have him out when we needed him. We had that scene where he's out on the phone chatting, and then we put him in the car and just had him laughing while burning out.
Yeah, you can see you did like a wet down where you kind of wet the ground. And was there any like special lighting that you was involved for that particular commercial?
I should have BTS, but for lighting him in the car, I had a couple 1x1 lights, just to light him the way I wanted. I didn't want direct sunlight on the sheet metal because as the overpass had this gap between the two overpasses, which would create this nice rectangular softbox look as it kind of moved. Where if the sun was out, it'd probably be too contrasty for the taste that I wanted. I think, I want to see more of the car. I wanted that red to pop and just have more life out of it. So I kept the highlight to be more when it's softer, but it made the car look nice. As soon as it came around, you could see that nice highlight between the overpass, right? I think if that sun was there, it would be a really cool look, but it'd be way too contrasty because it was already, you had a bunch of this overpass that is just knocking down so much light as is. So, but I think it had a good look for it.
What about that FPV drone shot, like going through the window and all that? Like how did that happen?
Yeah, that window shot was more as a test. I wanted to see if we could actually try it because I'm like, look, I haven't tried this specific shot. I'm surprised I made the cut because it wasn't as good as I was hoping it would be, to be honest. But we had an amazing pilot, Chet, who was just so precise. Took him a couple takes. The sun was going down, and I think that was probably the last one that looked the best. But yeah, I work with FPV a lot, especially if you're doing performance automotive. It's like kind of a no-brainer. It's a very specific look, but they're starting new ways to kind of switch it up so it doesn't feel the same. And I always appreciate those pilots trying new things, because now they have gimbal FPVs, which is like the in-between of like the heavy lift drone and the hard mounted FPVs. So you can get super quick dynamic moves without being so rigid. It can be smooth, you know, which can feel like a helicopter shot. Like if you're really attacking from afar and then coming up to a car, you can get super close really fast in comparison to a heavy lift drone. But granted, now they came with the Inspire 3, which is a huge upgrade as well from if you want to film spherical. And I'm sure those move super quick, great in low light as well. I haven't used the Inspire 3 much, I think on a couple projects, but I love that technology just gets better.
I think I've seen it on Instagram where you have like one of those Canon Dream lenses, the 0.95, like super shallow depth of field. Like what's that lens about?
And I love that look, this isolated look that works for some specific projects, like one that I did for it was for Salvation Army called Silent Night. Just had this very particular look we wanted for a character who was this single mother who was just having a very hard night, right? And we needed this isolating effect, and these lenses did that for me. But so we have like, here's that Canon Dream lens. I still have a couple of them. With the rehousings, they actually improve the performance of the optics. Because what happens over time is these can probably be more detuned, you know, the spacing's not right, and then they're not as sharp wide open. But when I got my set from TLS, I could shoot wide open and be happy with the results. They sing wide open really well. They're softer, but sharp enough how I would want them. You know, you could go to a 1.4 and then you just be totally sharp enough for as sharp as you want to go. But yeah, anyway, they start out like this, you know, and then I got them rehoused. I don't have the set with me here. They're at a rental house right now, but they're fun lenses. I go with the Canon rangefinders, Canon FDs with the SSC coatings, Olympus OMs, 1950 Leica M lenses, and I don't remember. Oh, Tribe 7s, Black Wings. But those are all of the spherical bunch, which they're all for different projects. The accessibility, it's easy to get Tribe 7s, but I tuned them to my liking. There was some tunings I didn't like. The coatings were giving off purple flares, and I didn't like that. But anyway, I could go on a tangent on lenses because, I mean, they're the paintbrush, right? It's like you have the paints, you have your camera, but what kind of brush, what kind of texture are you wanting on these images? So it's like that's where the lenses come in. And I think they're just so important for the storytelling aspect and or for faces or for cars. I won't use these rangefinders on the cars because they flare too funky on the headlights, but and on the wider end, they make the car look too distorted. So they're not for cars, they're for faces. But you know, I have lenses for different things, different themes, but as you would too, I can imagine. So
Are there any other commercials that you want to talk about?
there too. There's this Jeep piece with Kacper Larski. This was our first collaboration, Kacper and I, and we were out in Northern California, and he has such a great energy to him too. He loves high octane energy and being quick and loose with the camera when it comes to like handheld and dealing with the actors. It really surprised me, the end result of this project. It felt like a grind while we're doing it because we had to move so quick. And the amount of stuff we had to film. I knew we had great car work. We had an amazing arm car team. We had the slow motion bits. This would have been Venice 1, and we had the Hawk V lights and the Hawk V Plus zoom, which I love that combination so much. It's like my go-to anamorphic man, we just had so much to film there. But this is where it was so amazing was his editing is probably like the one that surprises me the most. It always comes out better than I think it does because it's kind of so chaotic on the day. Like we'll choreograph good things, but we're okay. We have like 2 takes. We got to move on. We got to go to the next thing and just keep going. He so dialed with what he needs for his edits, and I just think that piece turned out so good. I was happy with the color too. We had a great collaborator colorist, Daniel Devu, help finish this with us. And yeah, I think this piece was something quite special. And we've worked since, Kacper, Larski, and I, on a handful of other projects. Yep, this one was a wild one. Mika was familiar with a lot of my other performance or high octane pieces, and he just wanted that to the nth degree and wanted to push it. And it was so much fun. He just wanted shakes, he wanted these rolling cameras, he wanted things to just not be so um clear. He wanted to be more like an emotion that you just kind of feel, what the car makes you feel. It was so spectacular working with him. He's such a great visionary director as well. Kind of laid out these scenes that we could just play around with. And once again, this camera package would be Venice with the Hawk V lights and the Hawk V Plus zoom. But you can see the spinning cameras. We do that all on the head and then add the camera shake. We use a lot of probe lenses for these like energetic camera moves when we did Poor Man's Processor on green screen.
Did you have a camera shaker box on that one?
Yeah, we did shaker box on this one. I think a lot of the energy came from that probe lens as well, whether it was like us dawing in onto a face or onto like the badge as it spins. I'd even rotate the lens through a mirror, and then that way we could spiral this probe lens so it feels like it's traveling through the universe and just like sort of wild perspective. But Nico, great editor as well, just can bring the energy, of all this footage and just make it feel alive.
How long would it take to film like all this content? Was it be like, multiple days or how long?
That one I think was a 2-day shoot. Surprising. Let me think about it. Yeah, I think it was a 2-day shoot. So we do some Poor Man's Process work where the car's parked and do some running footage and film an exterior scene in a day. And then we
Would
do the
that be
same.
like in a
Would you shoot that like in a studio or like where would you do that kind of?
Poor Man's Process stuff.
yeah?
We would do it in like could be in a parking lot, and we put 20 buys overhead just to kind of like shield the sun and so we can control the light ourselves. Well, and we did it in like an overhead parking as well. There's like this warehouse space where we park everyone, the crew. We just did it there as well, put a big green screen like that, and yeah, animate this stuff. I think the challenge with all the Poor Man's Process though is always fighting to be able to shoot the exterior footage first so you have knowledge of what the lighting is, and then film the interior, but we couldn't do that. So we had to film the opposite. So I'm like, okay, well, this is gonna be sunset, so let's do this. Filming, and some of these roads I've driven before in the past, given how much I shoot in Los Angeles, that I know the type of street lighting that's there or shops that are going to be on the streets. So helps having that knowledge too.
Do you do much like rear projection or like in the volume where you can kind of see what you get straight away rather than on a green screen?
I love using the volume. I've did a job with Kacper, Larski. We did it for Infiniti. Exteriors were all on location, and then I took my GFX and did a full like 360 or full sphere of like images. I don't know what you call that, but and then we project that onto the volume, and then we could film the interiors. Because fortunately, the interior shots where the car was parked, and I could share that so you can see the results. I was very proud of that. I think we did a believable job with that. And then I also did it on the Subaru piece, which is on my website, with the Roos brothers. The interiors, once again, volume, but exteriors, not. And I think the volume is it's an amazing tool because, yeah, you can keep that blue hour, that golden hour for a 12-hour day. But those two pieces are the ones I would share about the volume. I think they're so good. Then obviously like the sleek studio work, like I haven't put a lot on my website, but there's that Lexus piece I did for like a 4-car pack shot. We had we rented every light. They're called the Auroras, light matte Auroras or something, light gear. Every single one out in Los Angeles that was available. I think that was either 8 of them. They're 10 by 10 or something like that, or 6. And we had it as the huge softbox that we could pixel map. So as you see the spot, you'll see this pulsing effect, which was the charging of these cars. That was the whole theme of this. But everything, the cars, that circle, the wet down, and those lights in the background were real. But you'll see the motion of the lights.
Were those sets built?
Those sets were real. An incredible art department team. I didn't do that section that was out in Europe. I don't remember where they filmed it, but I only did the LA portion where the automotive stuff is done.
Okay.
Just to share that. That's just not all high octane work that I've done.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see the moving lights, the way we pixel map it. I think it creates a nice look for the sheet metal. It was good to revisit these because I haven't thought about them in a really long time. So quite a treat to go back to the past.
So what have you got planned for the future? You mentioned shooting more feature films maybe once a year, continue to work with new directors in the commercials. Are there any other kind of projects that you want to go out and any goals you want to achieve?
I think you nailed it. Honestly, I want to do more narrative work and still keep the automotive. Like I really enjoy it and grow in other ways in commercial. It's so much about the creative. Like I want to do more sports. I mean, I want to try some fashion stuff too, but it's most of the fun creative or the more interesting stuff has been automotive, and I've just enjoyed that. But yeah, like you mentioned, just narrative and keep up my commercial work. Just find those interesting projects.
Well, yeah, thanks so much, Jared. As a last thought, like, is there any advice that you can give to other kind of aspiring DOPs that want to get into commercial filmmaking or just filmmaking in general?
I think it depends on where they're at too, because it was so much harder for me to get in when I did, given we didn't have the RS3 gimbal, we didn't have these smaller gimbals which you could literally mount, or I don't suggest doing this, hang off the back of a truck, right? Like do things safely. Like we didn't have that, and cameras were not that good. You had like the DSLRs at the time, and the gimbal option I had was super expensive, and fortunately we had a connection. But it's easier, so much easier to film good car work now, I'd say. So someone thinking about just starting, like it's more affordable. You can do this, the barrier to entry I think is much easier that way. Now, if you have been doing it for some time or just trying to break in, I think the advice for them, like there's some mantras that I live by. Like take the project that scares you the most because you'll grow the most out of it. I feel like those are the ones that have really pushed me forward. But the ones that speak to you as well, not just because it scares you and it's like not for you, definitely has to be both. And being available. Like I could have said no to that Johnny Mass thing. I could have said no to the twins, Aaron and Winston, on their short film. But that harvested incredible relationship between these directors and collaborators. So being available, I think, is key. Now, if you're busy working, that's a great thing. But if you want to prioritize getting to where you want with your goals, you have to be available to do those things, right? So say you're stuck doing weddings, you have to end up being available to those projects that are calling to you, that are on your goal, that list of goals you have. So that's what I would say, Rory. I mean, I'm sure people are gonna just roll their eyes because like, yeah, we hear this all the time, but I mean, I need a kick in the butt all the time. I have my list of goals. I need that kick in the butt to be like, whoa, Jared, like, don't keep your blinders on. Don't keep doing the same thing. You got to switch it up. How are you going to get to where you want to go? You have to have that vision and not have the distractions. And so hopefully this kicks some people's butts to be like, okay, that's a good reminder. Yeah, I forgot about it. I was reminded last week, but I needed it today as well. It's good to have those reminders, at least for me.